So I was saying this, it's a signaling to those when we do RPs to the developers of what items we're encouraging, what items are most likely for them to move forward in a shortlisting process. But again, we're not expecting every developer, every project to score highest on all of these. The second thing I want, as you look through these revisions, this is for what we would call utility scale, 10 megawatt or larger projects. That's what this criteria will be used for. We are working on, and I think you guys all know Morgan is on our local development team, working on a criteria similar to this that we will use for those local distributed scale projects. So I think this is really what we're using for the utility scale and larger projects that could be local, could not be. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you recall, the one thing we haven't changed is that we're still doing 6 criteria that we're evaluating for all these projects. The first thing that we're suggesting to change is to have consistency in how we score each of the 6 criteria. Before, some could have 4 rankings, some had 3. It wasn't consistent. We thought both for us and for developers and for review committees will look at this, having consistency across those, and ADF scoring criteria for all 6 would be the first suggested change. So that's what's shown here. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through for this first one. I'll show you the old versus the new. For the rest, I'm just going to show you the new revisions, which will have highlights for what's been changed. And I'll talk through those briefly. So this was kind of in the current criteria, what the location looks like. Next slide, please. So as you can see, and big shout out to our Marcom team, which really helped clean this up quite a bit and make it a lot easier for both us and developers to view. And so what we're looking for here, again, shifting to the 5 scoring criteria, but making a couple modifications here on the location front. As you may or may not be aware, before this, we had projects considered the top criteria for local if they were located in San Diego or Imperial County. Some projects in Imperial County are CAISO interconnected and do not require import. Most require import. So us as an LSC has a limited import allocation associated to us. So as much as we want to encourage and contract with those projects, we do have a limited allocation. And so we're suggesting we revise the highest criteria here to be in San Diego and also Imperial County for those that do not require import rights. Imperial that does require import rights would still be able to score in the B or the second highest criteria. So that's the change we're suggesting for this criteria. Next slide, please. For these next 2 fairly minor changes, what we thought was critical to at least signal to developers as us as LSCs and other CCAs are having to engage with projects earlier on in the process, sometimes before they even have deliverability on a second time. We wanted to add into this quantitative evaluation criteria, calling out that we're going to be evaluating, looking at the timelines and expectations to get deliverability, which is critical for the resource adequacy components of the projects. Next slide, please. And again, this is a scoring criteria where we're gauging overall project development, likelihood, experience levels. And so we had interconnection status on here before, wanted to clarify that will also include deliverability. This could look at both specifically the project or how well the developer has a track record of obtaining deliverability. Next slide, please. So these next 3 have, I call it a little more medium to substantive changes. So I'm going to take some time going through these. So the community benefits section, first we're clarifying where that would be located for the highest score. We didn't have travel projects or travel lane with consent in there before, so we wanted to clarify that and add that there. The second item, and again, we got a lot of good feedback throughout this process, but we're suggesting that we put in there has set up or committed to a community benefits fund that benefits San Diego Community Power customers. If the board moves forward with approving these revised criteria, this one in particular, there needs to be a pretty thoughtful approach, and we would expect to come back to the board with some thoughts around how to fully implement that due to the nature of that needing to come to San Diego Community Power, but obviously needing to be run in a way that doesn't suggest or lead to potentially any conflicts of interest. And so we have run some grant programs through our programs department. I think a very similar strategy where any distribution of those funds would be done through an RFP process and essentially having third parties reviewing and selecting those. So I would suggest that we can be able to come back to the board if this is approved before we do a solicitation with with some thoughts about how we would administer that, as well as thinking through some criteria, whether that's on a per megawatt hour, per kilowatt basis of what some suggestions of what that criteria might be for project developers to score in that highest criteria. Again, we're not expecting every project to do that, but again, that would be one of the things you would need to do to score in the highest criteria. Would absolutely not be required to move forward. The second one in the medium plus or the B category, this one is essentially shifting from what was our high before. So now if you don't have that benefit fund, the highest you could score would be the B. And then on the low criteria, we're suggesting a change here where even if a project has, by its zoning or permitting authorities, has been allowed to be cited, it would score in the lowest category. Again, if it's over a certain size, if it's a certain technology, if within 1,500 feet of residential property. Again, signaling to developers that if those kind of projects are there, probably unlikely you're going to get shortlisted or move forward us in an RFP process. Next slide, please. On workforce development, we had, in the prior criteria, we had pegged a lot of this to the ISWF policy that San Diego Community Power has. Here, we want to be a little more clear in the high, medium, plus scoring, that in order to get that score for the highest score, the project would have either executed or committed to a full project labor agreement for that project. For the B score, they might not have a full PLA or project labor agreement for the project, but would they commit to local hire commitments, and 50% or more of the labor on the project would be union labor to qualify there. Mediums, minus, or C. The prior criteria was before the Inflation Reduction Act, so there are some criteria in there that we think makes sense to point to here. And then the low scoring, wanted to clarify there, one or all. So any of those things that they're not doing could fall into low. That doesn't necessarily have to be they're not doing all of those. So that's the main change on the low criteria. Next slide, please. And this is just again a reference back to what this current policy is. I would say it's very hard to meet all these criteria without a project labor agreement. Scoring criteria did not require that to score highest in there. So again, that's one of the reasons we wanted to clarify that in the scoring criteria. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the last one. So on the environmental stewardship criteria, we got a lot of questions from developers through the process of how do we view and how do we look at agricultural land that's no longer suitable for farming and brownfields. So we wanted to clarify that in here that is would be something that we're looking at for the high or medium plus criteria if they're using that land and repurposing that for renewable or sustainable storage development. And then previously, we did not have anything in the environmental scoring criteria related to localized air pollution and the impacts of this. That's a metric that the state does a really good job of monitoring and for local communities as well. And we wanted to have that rise up to the high scoring criteria here, where if a project can show that it's has benefits to that, whether that's repurposing an old facility or leading to potentially the shutdown of some of those facilities in these communities and replacing those with storage or something else that could replace those kind of projects, that would be the high criteria. And the medium plus the B, the main change here between A and B is just where it could be located. So if it has all those beneficial impacts, but it's not located on this previously developed land, we still think that could elevate it to the plus or B scoring criteria. The medium minus C is again kind of slightly shifting, not adding really, they were just slightly shifting how we were classifying this. That would have been the medium score before. And so if they can demonstrate other benefits, but they're not located in one of these areas. And then the low score for F is they have not even conducted feasibility studies of the project's environmental impacts. And so again, signaling to developers or those who would apply to the RP that if you're that early in the process or you haven't even developed that, probably unlikely you're going to move forward in the shortlisting process in an RFP. Next slide, please. And so this is just, I wanted to give a demonstrated example. Kind of this is what us as staff rolls up when we get all the solicitations and we score these projects. This is what it looks like as we're kind of summarizing. So there's information about the project, the location, the price, the capacity, both on the storage and on the generation, and the COD And then for each of the 6 criteria, the scoring criteria is given and summarized, and then we would go to the working group and talk through potentially which projects make sense for shortlisting. So I wanted to provide an example here. Next slide, please. That's everything. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Oops. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you for the work on this and the presentation. Kimberly, do we have any public comment?
Jason Anderson of Clean Tech submitted a letter of support, which was posted to the website and emailed to the board of directors.
Okay, thank you for highlighting that. So with that, I will turn it over to the board members for any comments and this. Director Parent.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff, for the presentation and as we were saying earlier. So I just wanted to, so I think this is a good piece of work. I had a couple of qualifications that I'd like to offer before voting for it related to community benefit sections. So I think sometimes there's I want to avoid any potential encouragement or situation where providing community benefits could be I want to avoid any enticement of providing community benefits in like suspect manners. I think sometimes these things in other jurisdictions and other contexts have been abused. You see a lot of times like housing developments, and the classic example is housing developments in San Francisco, where you can't get anything approved unless you have like there's a community benefits package to powerful nonprofits in the area, and I want to make sure that we don't encourage that kind of activity at San Diego Community Power. And so I think the way to offer that I would suggest as an amendment to this is that we proceed with this, but on the conditions that any community benefit contributions by an applicant or by a developer go to San Diego Community Power for administration, and then as opposed to any third party entity. And secondly, that we ask staff to return back to the board with some proposed criteria for both evaluating and sizing the expected community benefits contributions, and also how any of those received funds will be allocated to achieve those community benefits. I guess that's a motion, but I'm happy to entertain further discussion or clarification.
Yeah.
You want to respond, Kenny?
Sure. Thank you, Director Parent. I think those are all really thoughtful approaches to that. And yeah, I think my only follow-up question would be, is there a time how I've thought through this is we would come back to you with that prior to us issuing any RFPs next year. I think that makes sense. But if there's a different timeline that you would like, please let us.
I think that would be very satisfactory. Yeah.
So if I understand, there's kind of a two-part motion. One is to move the staff recommendation with the clarification that any community benefit would go to San Diego Community Power for administering. And then secondly, a request for staff to come back.
Yes, and the staff I guess the two elements of that second part would be they would come back both to help us determine sort of the scale of community benefit, right? Are we expecting that $1 million contract is going to have $2 million of community benefits, or $10,000 or something, whatever that figure is? And then secondly, to propose criteria or criteria and a process by which we would allocate any of those funds that we receive for community benefit purposes. Is that clear enough?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other comments? Does somebody want a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's a question to piggyback Director Parent. Prior to this, I read in some of our, prior to this, Mr. Chairman, we have some community benefits that San Diego Foundation has been administering. Is that something separate? This will be separate, correct?
Kenny, you want to?
Mr. Key?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll let Jack touch on this a little bit as well. But currently none of we have a few. I think only one agreement to date that has a community benefit fund portion of the contract. How all these are structured is typically the developer is not required
to supply those funds until COD. So we have probably until 25 or 26 before we receive those funds.
I see.
The funds that are currently being administered for the grant programs are separate from any of these types of community benefit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the clarification.
Jack, do you want to add?
I'll just quickly add that we have the existing administrative infrastructure to deliver these types of resources, and that's for the current community grant program and municipal grant program as well.
Thank you.
We'll be evaluating how we can utilize these funds with that as existing infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
Okay, yeah. Well, I had one question, now I've got a few questions. To the point of my colleagues here, project in Nevada comes up with a community benefit. It's a little bit difficult. Is it difficult for us to do a community benefit to a community that's impacted around a project in Nevada? Or would we be bringing those funds here locally to use them wisely to benefit within our member agencies?
Yeah, great question, Chair Awakawa. So how we thought through and get a lot of good feedback from numerous parties, and how we ended up wording that first, the highest scoring criteria. So again, if a project is developed out of state or anywhere else, they may have localized benefit programs that they're doing already as part of that project. The highest they'd be able to score for that, though, would be the medium plus B criteria, which factors in that the project is already doing some kind of community benefits. In order to get the highest criteria, though, to get the A score, they would also need to commit, or if they don't have anything else, they would still need to commit to a community benefit fund that specifically, to your point earlier, would go to San Diego Community Power to be administered for local benefits to our constituents.
Okay. And then the second question, trying to take the letter from Clean Tech and simplify it. I think there was a concern, some projects require a discretionary permit by an agency that may have a community benefit component already in that. Would we expect something additive on top of that, or would we consider something they've already obligated to do?
Sure.
And before you answer, what I'm thinking about is the Hakumba project, where the county had already made some positions. I found them to be interesting choices where they decided that those community benefits should go to, but that was their choice. So how would we deal with it when they've already gotten some
Sure.
from a land use?
Yeah, great question. So I think a similar answer to my last one, which would be whether permitting agency is putting that requirement on, or the developer is just choosing to do that in their area. That would help elevate the project to potentially that C or B score, because it's demonstrating community benefits, but would not qualify for how we currently frame the A score, because that would be an additional benefit fund that again would go directly to be administered by San Diego Community Power. All right. But to be clear, again, I want to be clear, we're not expecting every project to get that A score across all these criteria.
Okay.
So there's probably going to be a number of projects that we would bring to you in the coming years that have gone through all this process and didn't get an A for community benefits, or didn't get an A in that of the criteria.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands up. I think it was a good discussion. Again, thank you to staff for the work. And I really appreciate going back, looking at what you've done and whether it's working, and then always that continual improvement there. So thank you for that. So we do have a motion by Director Parent and a second by Mayor McCann. Kimberly, please call the vote.
Director Aguirre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Hensy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Parent, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Yamani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I know you're not going anywhere. So item 15 is to approve the Erevan Avocet standalone storage energies service agreement. And we'll turn it back over to you again, Kenny, for your presentation on this item.
Thank you, Chair McCullough. Yeah, so this is a project that came through. San Diego Community Power ran RFP for standalone storage projects earlier this year. This was one of the projects that was shortlisted through that process, through consultation with the Energy Contract Working Group. So we're excited to bring it today. So that was,
The RFO was issued in April of this year. The projects we were looking for, again, we're looking for RA, we're looking for capacity attributes, potentially energy arbitrage from these renewable storage projects to really start building the foundations of our portfolio along with the renewable assets that we're adding. We did get a pretty robust response, and this project was one of the highest scoring projects across the criteria. So we're very excited to bring this to you today. Next slide, please. So this is a quick overview of the project. So it's a fairly large standalone storage project. It's 200 megawatts, a 4-hour battery, so 800 megawatt hour project. It's located in Los Angeles County near Carson in an industrial area that them and multiple other developers are repurposing some sites there. And this speaks to what I just talked about, some of those localized air pollution impacts. And I'll get to this in a couple slides, but I think it's worthwhile why this is up there. You can kind of see what the air looks like. These projects being put there really helps mitigate some of the localized air pollution from some of the peaker plants that are there, as well as this and others combined. As they come online, will kind of lead to help some of those be phased out or shut down to really reduce some of those localized pollution impacts in the area. So some key parts of this contract. So this is where we have full co-lending agreements. So we'll get some of the energy arbitrage value from this, the ancillary services value, as well as the resource adequacy benefits. The resource adequacy benefits of this project in particular are important because we have midterm reliability obligations. This project is slated to be online April 15th of 2026, ahead of the June 1st MTR compliance deadline. So it would be significant volumes to help us meet that compliance obligation. We're looking for a 15-year term. And we do have protections in there with compensation if it fails to meet certain performance requirements or milestones in the contract. Next slide, please. So again, the project already has full capacity deliverability status. So once it hits COD, it'll be ready to deliver that and RA to us. And it's critical kind of for our midterm reliability obligations in 2026 and beyond. The pricing was competitive as we evaluated that and did our quantitative analysis under the scoring criteria. So it scored very well. And the long-term procurement of this and locking in this for 15 years provides a lot of certainty regarding the energy arbitration, the ancillary services, and the RA from these projects. And this is a well-known developer. They have a large portfolio, over 10 gigawatts. And I'll note that they're the same developer of another project in our portfolio, the Vikings solar storage project. So we have a good track record with them. They have a good track record of these projects online. Some of the workforce development and community benefit highlights. The project will have about 100 construction jobs during the construction of the project. About 4 of those will be permanent jobs once the project is online. They're committed to using union labor and having a full PLA for the project, and they've already had commitment letters with both the local IBEV and the state construction trade councils. And I mentioned this earlier, so I need to go fully into this, but one of the other benefits we're looking at from the environmental perspective is, again, the shutdown or phase out of a few of the other thermal generation plants that are in the area with them and other storage projects that will come online in the area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Kimberly, any public comment?
There's no public comment.
All right, so I'll turn it over to the board members for comments, and we do need a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, where's Avocet? Is that local company?
No, so sorry. Avocet is the project name. Arivon is the developer.
The developer's local?
No, the developer's not local.
So yes, we're creating jobs, but it's not for local, not for our local people in our community, correct?
Correct. I mean, we've had some discussions with local labor, not specifically around this project, but in projects in general. And feedback we've gotten from them to date has been projects that, especially the projects that are in Los Angeles County and Riverside County that are so close, they tend to have, what's the correct terminology? Reciprocity agreements with them and the local IBEV, which is there. So some of the local labor from here could potentially be working on this project. There's no firm commitments for that. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that we continue to create jobs through these contracts, but we also hope that our local people in our jurisdictions would be given the opportunity to take advantage of these jobs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Director Yamani.
Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the item.
And I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Fine. Seeing no other comments, well, I think, as we'll continue to revisit with what our strategic plan is, what our goals are, they're not always consistent. I don't think this contract bumped anybody within the San Diego County area, which would have been a preference. But this is a pretty significant storage facility, so I know staff's committed to trying to figure out how we do that. So anyway, but I appreciate Director Yamani raising the issue. It's important.
Sir, soon,
Okay.
very soon. We will have
Yeah.
local soon.
There we go. Kimberly, please call the vote.
Director Aguirre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Hensy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Parent, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Yamani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna give you a little bit of a break then. So we'll now move on to item 16, which is the last item on our action agenda. To approve the Pomona 2 standalone energy storage services agreement. So tongue twister. I'll turn it over to Byron Vosper to present this item. Byron?
Thank you, Chair. Directors, good evening. Can you guys hear me okay? We good?
A little louder.
A little louder.
All right. Not many people asked of me, Chair, so Aaron's that way. No, that sounds great. And again, thanks, Kenny, for all of the work and the presentation earlier. It's a nice primer. Item 15 is a great primer for item 16. It's going to look similar, but it's a little smaller and more straightforward. So hopefully that sets us up well. I also want to give a shout out to Andre Torres, one of our team members in attendance tonight, but it was on all the heavy lifting of this negotiation as well. So she will be here in her stead. So this is the Pomona energy storage contract we've been working on for quite a while now. We hope to bring this to you a few months ago, but the negotiation just kind of dragged out a little bit. It's a 20 megawatt. So again, Kenny just talked about a 200 megawatt. So this is a 20 megawatt contract for a 2-hour battery in LA County. And you can see here on the photos, first of all, the industrial area, kind of similar as the Carson area here. This one project is in an industrial area. And so not too much concern about greenfield impacts. Again, in these congested areas as well, kind of improving local air quality concerns with the battery storage and carbon free resources. And the map up there as well, also just noted where the point is in the broader LA area. Key terms are really similar to the last contract. We're getting full dispatchability, so it's a full tolling resource with RA. This product has FCDS, so full capacity available to us already. And again, the added benefit is it's actually already online. So this has been constructed, so it's not even 2 or 3 years out. Like the previous one was, this resource is all already online and delivering. Actually has been delivering to us under a short-term agreement while we hammer out long-term agreement. So it's again fixed capacity price for 15 years, fully operational, as I mentioned. And then there are the typical adjustments to payment structures to ensure that this performs satisfactorily. Next slide, please. And the analysis here is relatively straightforward. It's online, it's operational. We've already buying capacity from this resource for the last 4 months, I believe. And as it is online in 23, and this contract will start in 2024, it helps us meet the midterm reliability obligations that we have to bring new clean capacity online in California between 2023 and 2028. And so this helps us meet some of those timelines that we have for PUC mandate. And again, similarly, provides capacity, energy arbitrage, and ancillary services value to us over the 15-year term. And given especially given the early online date, it's very priced. And again, with Ormat Technologies, we have another contract with them as well for the Brawley Solar Facility redeveloping with our experienced developer and asset owner. So we're excited about continuing the partnership with them. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Byron. Kimberly, do we have any public comment on this one?
There is no public comment.
All right, I'll turn it over to the board members for comments and the motion. Mayor McCann.
No questions. There are none, and I just wanted to thank you, Byron, and I will make the motion to approve the item. So moved.
Second.
Mr. Parent?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Kimberly, please call the vote.
Director Aguirre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Hensy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Parent, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Yamani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
Okay, that ends our informational and discussion items. So from here, we'll go to report, and we'll start out with a report from our CEO, Karen Burns.
Good evening, Chair and board members. Good evening to the public. Next slide, please. So we have been out and about in the community. Our public affairs team continues to partner with organizations across the region to bring SCCP into the community and connect with the customers we serve. This month, we joined our community advisory members, Matt Harris and Lauren Cazares in La Mesa at the La Mesa Parks Appreciation Day. Our outreach team also tabled at the Suncoast Farmers Market in Imperial Beach to connect with customers and answer questions. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. And last week, SCCP joined Business for Good at the Doing Business for Good Summit. Last slide. And Jen LeBron participated in a panel about communicating social good and policy. Okay, so this slide, last week I had the pleasure of participating in a fireside chat with Truckee Town Council member and former Mayor Courtney Henderson, moderated by Patricia Watts of FCI Management at the California Energy and Demand Management Council's Fall Symposium. Courtney and I spoke about the critical role of local governments in advancing California's clean energy and climate goals. And it was a great opportunity to share how San Diego Community Power is working towards a clean energy future. Yesterday, I was up in Los Angeles, attending Volatility's annual U.S. Energy Storage Outlook event, where I spoke on a panel about the opportunity for energy storage investment in California. Our COO, Jack Clark, has also provided SDCP updates to the city of San Diego last month, including the City Council's Environment Committee and the city's Franchise Compliance Review Committee. Next slide, please. I am so glad that tonight you had an opportunity to meet two of our new team members, and we are still hiring. We are continuing to build out our dream team and interviewing for 4 positions. Next slide, please. As you know, we outgrew our former space in mid-October and have just signed and moved into it with a 2-year with a 1-year optional extension for our new space in Liberty Station. We successfully completed our move earlier this month and welcome you to come visit. Our ever-growing team is really excited to be in this new space together. It's all in one location, all on one floor, and there is room for growth. So as we continue to grow as an organization, we'll evaluate our current and future space needs. This includes the potential opportunity to create a public meeting space for future SCCP office site. So given where we are and that there are a lot of potential strategic initiatives that could impact our space and our spacing needs, we plan to revisit the long-term lease discussion sometime in early 2025. Thank you for your support and partnership as we plan for the future of our organization. Thank you.
Okay. With that, does our general counsel have anything to report?
All is quiet in the legal world.
Oh, there we go. That's always a good sign. Do any of our directors want to offer anything? Oh, Mayor Aguirre.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just want to commend for being such a dynamic leader, getting out there, doing such a community. I want to especially thank her for coming to Imperial Beach to the Suncoast Market. Thank you.
And not seeing any, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. And we will now go into closed session. We have 2 items in closed session, 1 conference with labor negotiators and 2 public employee appointment recruitment updates. Kimberly, do we have any public comment on the closed session items?
There's no public comment.
Okay, so now we will convene in closed session and there will be a report out
We lost audio. I don't know if you guys can hear us. Hello?
Jordan?
Are we,
Yeah, so we need to be able to mute so that it's a closed session, so nobody else can hear. What Jordan is saying, so should they call in on someone's cell phone and be put on speaker?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Aguirre, can you call Karen's cell phone number? And she'll put you on speaker, and then Director Hinsey, do you have someone's cell phone number that you could call?
I can call, let me see if I have. No, I don't have any other board members' numbers besides Paloma. And Tara's not there, right?
Paloma, and then Paloma can call Karen a three-way.
I think so.
You want to try a three-way
that
call?
works.
Okay, I'll call Paloma.
Okay, sounds good. See you.
Okay,
So we should log off, right?
Pardon?
how do they do that? Do they just mute?
No, just stay in. You'll be muted.
Mute.
Just
Okay,
make
got
sure
it.
You're muted on there.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
We go to the next slide.
We have to come back out of closed session. Report out.
Yeah.
No, no.
But we have to wait. Yeah, they came back. Terrific, perfect. So with that, we are, can you please call the roll, Kimberly?
Yes. City of San Diego Representative,
LaCava present.
County of San Diego Representative, Imperial Beach Representative,
Here.
La Mesa Representative,
Here.
National City Representative.
Here.
Chula Vista Representative,
McCann present.
Encinitas Representative.
Kinsey here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Is there a report out from closed session?
There is no report tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So with that, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and I appreciate everyone's participation today. We are adjourned until the next regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Sandy Community Power on December 14th, 2023. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.